something happens when you become deliberate, when you come to consciousness, self-awareness. It means that you can now partner with God to do big things. Until then, it seems like God is protecting his purpose, protecting his will in your life, protecting his interests in your life. You see, that's the way it is. God is finding is running around you because you do not yet know who you are. So he's running around you, protecting everything he put in you that you require for mission, and doing everything it takes to influence your will to come to the point of conscious participation where two can work together because they agree. So the first thing I want to deal with this evening, like I said, the topic again is the individual, the influence or the influencer, and the institution. You're going to have to build these three aspects of life. I said something in the Jesus Lovers Club. Now, by the way, my name is Andafa Darling. I am the president of the King's Convoy and the lead coach of the Jesus Lovers Club. Now, so if you look at the description of this video, you'll find the link to join the Jesus Lovers Club. Please join. As long as you love Jesus, the club is free. You're welcome to join us. I said something in the Jesus Lovers Club earlier this evening. I talked about the fact that life seems to be long and short at the same time. When you look at the future, many times, maybe if I say it now, you may not agree with it, but I have evidence for what I'm saying. Many times when we look at the future, we believe it's far. And what makes you feel so? Somebody can say, I feel like I'm getting older, I feel like I'm running out of time. Yes, but yet we feel it's far, and between the concern of running out of time and the feeling that there is more than enough time, one of those feelings prevail. And how do we know which one prevails? Is the one that affects your action. And what's that action? Procrastination. The reason why we postpone to tomorrow, the reason why we say to ourselves, I will do it later, the reason why we make short-term decisions is because we believe we will get to the main things later. There's time. And that's a big error. But that's a paradox. That's something that happens when you look in the future. You see that. But at the same moment, if you should look back and try to remember and look behind, you realize, man, I can't believe it. This is February already. Was it not just barely yesterday we shouted Happy New Year? How is it that it's February already? And maybe you're not aware, February is 9th. Today is the 9th day of February. So you realize when you look backwards that, time is so quick, it's so short, but our actions are influenced by different thoughts when we look into the future. We feel like, there is enough time. This paradox affects us, whether we like it or not. It affects us. I'm saying this to you not because it's something I've mastered. I'm telling you that being aware that there is this effect, that life has this effect, is the reason why David said that prayer when he says, oh Lord, teach us to number our days. He said in the previous verse, he says, the days of man are about 70. He says, and if by reason of strength, 80. He says, so God, Lord, teach us to number our days. The guy is saying that, man, this thing, there's so short a time. The time is not enough that if you don't schedule it, if you don't do the work of saying, I'm going to do this from point A to point B, then I'm going to do this between 30 and 35, between 35 and 40 and 50. If you don't number your days, my brother is watching us. That's Saturday. Kosoye from Warri. It's good to have you join us this evening. If you don't realize that life is jinxing you, is in a sense, and your days are running off. So it says, teach us to number our days. So think of your days as lifetime. And it says, help us, Lord, to put numberings to lifetime. Now, it says, so we may apply our heart to wisdom, so we can do the right thing per time, do the wise thing per time. Because who knows, you may right now be in the right moment to do certain things that you are not doing. Rather, you are under the influence, that deceptive influence of time. When you look into the future, you feel like, I'll do it next year. Someone said to me, when I get married, said, um, in another 3 years' time. You see that statement, I'm going to get married in another 3 years' time. 3 years' time. It seems very well thought out. It seems very planned, well numbered. You see, when you say, I'm getting married 3 years' time, it looks well numbered. Then I say to this person, how old are you now? He says it's 25. I said, this is 2025. So if you are 25-year-old now, 3 years time will be what? 2028. So you say you're going to get married in 2028. He said, okay, yeah, 3 years time, 2028. Okay. Then I says, that means you're going to get married at the age of 28. Okay. Now the problem is this. Many times we fix goals, but we didn't calculate what the impact of that goals is to the numbering of our days. Between zero, between birth and death, where does that leave me? I asked someone this question. I said, so how many years do you have left? It seemed like a strange question, like, who knows how many years they have left? I said, well, that's the problem. That's the effect of the illusion of time that I'm talking about. That's the first thing I'm dealing with in this webinar this evening. That we think fundamentally that we have more time. That's an error. When I ask the question, how many years do you have left? How do you even begin to answer that question? Well, let me guide you. It brings me to the second thing I want to talk about, which is lifetime. What is lifetime? We use the word lifetime. To make it easy for you to understand that word, I'm going to introduce another word, airtime. Now, if you live around here in Nigeria, you know that airtime, you buy it and you load it in your phone, or these days you just load it from your account, right? But the point is that your phone cannot perform, I said, make calls beyond its airtime. Airtime is how much time you are given to be on air. It's as simple as that. Airtime, if you have 5 hours, you'll be on air for 5 hours. If you have 3 hours, you're on air for 3 hours. And at any given point, there's a way to check your balance, how much airtime you have left. Now, the same thing applies to lifetime. It's how much time you have to be in life. The scriptural word, the word you find in the Bible is the land of the living. To be in the land of the living. What does that even mean? It means that all of life is not the land of the living. However, the land of the living is where physical life is demonstrated. And so there's life beyond earth. But earth is referred to as the land of the living. Remember David said, um, I will not die but live to praise God in the land of the living. Yeah, well, that's the point. So this is the land of the living, okay? That's where we are, irrespective of your country, whatever. It's called the land of the living. And earth time, a lifetime, sorry, is how much time you are given, that you have to operate, to access this land of the living. What do we do in the land of the living? We live in the land of the living. So that brings us to my third point. What is living? Now, please don't start with me on your biology and anything that has life. No, no, no. I want us to engage a definition that we can use. All right, that's how I like to think of words. I like to think in terms of meaning that I can use. Oh, we have Wise from Worry here today. Good to have you. Thanks for joining us. Please, if you are there, you're watching us, we really love to know where you're connected from. And please, if you have not subscribed, I would deeply appreciate if you do so. And there is a bell icon there. Click the bell icon to be sure that whenever we go live, you get a personal notification. All right, so we'll talk about lifetime. Is the amount of time you're giving to be in the land of the living. And then we'll talk about living, therefore. If this is the land of the living, how do I know that I am not just present in that land, that I am living? There's this movie, I'd like for you to watch it, even though I don't know. You know, I'm working on something. I'm thinking about movie nights in the Jesus of Us Club, that we could actually connect and watch a movie and discuss it like we are doing now with Bible reading. And I'm going to communicate more about the Bible reading plan to you in the group, maybe tonight or tomorrow. There's something we have coming up. Anyways, there's a movie, The Croods. It's animation, The Croods. The daughter said something to the father in that movie that is so strong. You know, they were living in a cave, and the father said, I've kept all of you alive to this point. And then she said, no, Dad, that's not living. That's just not dying. And there's a difference. Now, there's surely a difference between living and just not dying. Now, the word for just not dying is surviving. Some people don't realize that they are not interested in living. They're just interested in surviving. Have you heard people say things like, that one person go shop? As though they just came here to eat. Let me tell you, as long as you are eating, you're resting, you are eating, you will be alive, but you're not living. You're surviving. Now I know that life is threatened when you can't even eat. So yes, living cannot happen until a man has survived. Living happens beyond survival. Anyone who decides to live will have to do more than survive, which means they will have to survive and then plus. However, not everybody who is surviving is living. In fact, some people have survived and then they're so aimless, they don't know what to do. What they do with the excess of money and time and everything else they get after survival is squander. They buy TV, then they buy another TV, then they have a TV in each of the rooms, and there's no place to put TV anymore. Then there's a new TV, then they change the old one, and they give out the old one. That's even if they give it out. Sometimes they put it in the storeroom, the old one, and put a new one. Then they put a bigger one. Then they put a bigger one with internet inbuilt. Then they put a bigger one that comes with a human being inside. Well, whatever they want to do, they invest in things. You get what I mean? They get chairs. Then they get other 2 sets of chairs in the parlor. Then they get a sound system. Then they get a bigger one. They get a one with big speakers. It's really a sense of aimlessness. You see people who have phones, and then they announce a new phone, and then they get the new phone. As long as they've announced the new one, they feel inferior if they are still using the old one. It's a lack of a sense of identity, that what they own, what they have, is how they feel good. Is how they are happy with themselves, because besides or outside that, they really are just not happy with themselves. So what is living? How do I know if I am living or if I'm just surviving? I'm just passing time. I'm just not dying. You know, when I see how people fight not to die, I feel like they could put all that energy into living. So what's living? I'll give you my definition. Living is the active expression of existence. I'm not done, comma, but let's deal with that. The active expression of existence. What does that mean? I exist. I think that that's a fact. But then the Bible describes this physical earth as the land of the living. In other words, a place where living is demonstrated. So, to live is to actively, and mark the word active, that's critical, because living is not passive. Living is not what is happening to you. That's life. So, you don't do anything. You have life and you're breathing, that you are alive. But to now live is to demonstrate that you exist. to demonstrate, to express existence actively, to show that you exist. And then, what is the evidence of the active expression? Is that, so I'll give you the full definition, then we'll break it down, right? Living is the active expression of existence that is evidenced by transformation, contribution, and legacy, which should lead to fulfillment. So every word there is critical. That living is the active expression of existence. All right? Already you exist. But to live is to actively express, actively demonstrate your existence, actively show that you exist. Let me imagine that this world is all colors, that human beings are colors. Just imagine with me, I have that kind of imaginary mind, right? Imagine that human beings are colors, and that in a world of black, white, and blue, you are color red. It's one thing to be in such a world of, let's say, black and white world, and you exist, but you are not black, you are not white, you are red. You are a color, you exist. To act, to live as that color, therefore, is to demonstrate that you exist. That is to shine the red, that it becomes obvious that it is there. So that's one part of it. The active demonstration of existence. Now, the evidence that you are living is three things. Number one, transformation. Number two, contribution. Number three, legacy. The evidence of the active expression of existence, the evidence that you came into the land of the living and demonstrated that you came, is that number one, transformation, number two, contribution, number three, legacy. And where these three things were expressed actively, it will result in fulfillment. In other words, if you are living, you will be fulfilled. The more you live, the more fulfilled you become. If you are just not dying, you will not be fulfilled. You could be satisfied. You could eat the meal of your choice, happy, and sleep and wake up. But you're going to have those moments where you just wake up and wonder, what in the world am I doing with my life? Fulfillment is the complete expression of a thing as designed. Is that I am as I am. I am being as I be. Do you get that? All right. So let's talk about those three things. I want you to live in 2025. That's the point of this class. And I want to teach you how to demonstrate your existence, how to express your existence in an active way, that your lifetime, I mentioned something in the Jesus of Us Club. I said, there are going to be lifetime outcomes. Lifetime outcomes. What is supposed to happen because you lived? There are people who are no longer here that we cannot forget. Every time we turn on an incandescent light, we remember Thomas Edison. The incandescent bulb has turned out today to be an evidence that he came into the land of the living and demonstrated his existence. I will give you that definition again. Living is the active expression of existence that is evidenced by transformation, contribution, and legacy, which should lead to fulfillment. If it is true that you lived, there should be transformation, there should be contribution, there should be legacy. And as long as these three things exist and continue to increase, there will be fulfillment. Fulfillment is the experience of living. Let me put it this way. But I think you get it. I think you get it. So let's talk rather of what these three things are: transformation, contribution, legacy. Transformation, if you read in the book of Romans, I shared this in the Jesus Lovers Club, I think a while back, when Paul says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed. You see two words. One is conform, and the other is transform. They both have one word in common, and that is form. But what they have different. By the way, please let us know where you're watching us from, okay? Where you're watching us from and your name. I'm very excited. It's one thing you can do that gets me very happy to know that you are connected. And please, while you are here, please subscribe, okay? Subscribe and click the icon bell so you're notified every time we go live. Now, transform and conform have one word, and that word is form. Therefore, what's the meaning of con and trans, which are the prefixes of the word form? To conform is to take the same form. So if you go to an assembling line or a place where they are mass producing, there's a mold. And every product that comes out of that production takes the same form. Let me take it to you who is doing if you're at home and you wanted to bake some pastries. If it was meat pie, you have a process that ensures all the meat pies of a size and a design comes out the same. So it means those particular batch of products, they take the same form. They conform to one specific design. Now, if you have a system, I don't know, a system where you put, imagine you have a machine at home, okay? Imagine you have a machine, some form of oven, but think of it as the 2048 model, where you put all the ingredients in it and then you press what you want, or you press a button and it will take the ingredients, you know, abracadabra, and it will bring out something. And that could be egg roll, could be meat pie, it could be whatever. As long as that machine brings out the same shape, size, taste of meat pie, it is conform, which means all of the meat pies, they take the same form. I think that's fair. Now, to transform doesn't mean different forms. You know, the way we think, that's how I thought in this, as I studied the details of some of these things, you just feel different form. But it's interesting what it is. It is not different form, it is the next form. And that was very significant. What does that mean? It means to transform is to go from existing current form to the next form. Not another, but next. What does that mean? It's talking about the process of metamorphosis, where if you take the metamorphosis of a butterfly, the life cycle of a butterfly, you go from egg to larva to pupa to adult. Now, that's not the same process for every creature, okay? It's different if you're dealing with a frog, a toad, things like that, right? The point is that the organism, the creature, goes from what the first form for butterfly is egg. The next form is the larva. The next form is the pupa. The next form is the adult. So Paul tells us there that don't be conformed to this world. This world and all of the trends and everything you see going on in this world is meant to do one thing, is to mold everybody into a form. That's what school is trying to achieve. That's what we call compliance. You know, somehow everybody acting a particular way, becoming a specific thing, is the loss of personal identity. All creatures in nature don't go through the same metamorphosis. And let me tell you something. The world does not reward your similarity. The world rewards your difference. And by the world, I mean the principle of life does not reward similarity. See, if you start a business, if someone is selling in your compound bread and you start a business and you're going to sell bread and you don't find a way to differentiate, you're just going to enter the queue. You're just going to be one more bread. But if you have or take the time to sit down and think and find your unique selling proposition, come up with find a value that differentiates. We'll get into some of these things. You end up with value that stands on its own, which means you are allocated a market of your own rather than coming to share in a crowded market. Let's leave all of that. All right, so let's get into transformation. So I said living is characterized, evidenced by transformation. The second thing is contribution. What is contribution? Is that when this person is living, while he is here and alive, he left the world better than he came because he contributed evidence of his existence to the status quo. Now, the third part is legacy. Is that part of his contribution that is capable of retaining existence long after he leaves the land of the living. Legacy is what we leave behind, is the evidence that we lived. So we're going to talk about, that's why today we're talking about the individual, the influence, and the institution. You need to transform the individual. You need to contribute by influence, by building influence. Then you build legacy by building the institution. The institution will outlive all of us. Coca-Cola is still here. The founders are gone. If you don't turn your transformation and influence into an institution, you will live your day, serve your generation, and when you are gone, you're gone. But the only thing that will ensure what you fought for will continue to be fought for long after you're gone, is that you build an institution. So we can say that living is the active expression of existence that is achieved by building the individual, building influence, and building an institution. That is why I feel like you are not living if you are not transforming. If you are not growing, because transformation is growth, is that you should be going to the next form. It should always be about the next form. You can see the egg will stay egg for a while, and then it will go to the next form, which is the liver. It will stay a larva for a while, then it will go to the next form, which is the pupa. It will stay a pupa for a while, then it goes to the next form, which is the adult. Some other creatures go several forms. Our final form, the Bible says, to be conformed to the image of his son. In other words, eventually, however the diversity of our transformations, we will all come to the same form, which is the standard of Jesus. Are we good? All right. So let's talk about building the individual. Building the individual, which is building you. The individual is the man. We're talking about transformation now. The man needs to transform. What form does the man begin as? It begins as an egg in the womb of a woman. That's the journey you started. And then after surviving 9 months, all things being equal, you drew your first breath in the land of the living. However it was you landed, you were delivered into this world, a product from heaven. Now, when you landed, you had your first form in the land of the living, which is what we call a baby. And in that form, you were fed. Your transformation was the responsibility of your parents. They were the one that was counting your lifetime. So when I ask you how much time you have left and you're looking at me, I wonder if it's because they stopped counting for you. If you ask your mom then, they'll tell you it's 3 months, 2 weeks. You know, they followed. They knew what it means for you to be growing. They had expectations. There was a point where you're supposed to be sitting. And when you sat, everybody rejoiced. That was another stage of that form. And then you began to walk. And then you began to speak your first words. You began to build a vocabulary. Depending on where you arrived, you began to build. So if you were born into a Yoruba community, you began to speak the Yoruba sounds. You began to pick up the sounds of your environment. That's how you evolved. You came as a plain slate. Man, you didn't even know your name. Everything in your head, your capacity to understand me right now, you learned it.